to my dungeon.
It looks like an engineering office.
For those of you who don't know, I have triplets and a 2-year-old daughter, so I got to hide out down here. Otherwise, I'll never get any work done. As Dan, as you know, just having one's hard. Never mind 4.
Right.
So, anyways,
okay, so
what's happening?
Can you do a quick intro for the people, because like this is kind of a newer segment for our podcast. For anybody who's been like tuning into video on LinkedIn or whatever, doesn't know who you are, can you do just a quick intro? And then
Absolutely.
Tell me what your day-to-day looked like a month ago and what it looks like now.
Well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Joey Garnet. I am one of the partners with Albany Contracting, where we're in the residential contracting space, design and build, anything from doing a simple concrete driveway to additions and building houses from the ground up. Day-to-day operations a month ago typically look like, the start of a day would obviously, expediting work, getting all the installers at their jobs where they need to be, discussing any issues with the ongoing jobs with existing customers, and of course, also going out on sales calls and meeting new customers and making sure the appointments we had through that day we're still good to go, and then get in our vehicles and we'd head out to different homeowners and speak to them. And throughout the day would be, visiting different job sites, speaking to different homeowners, seeing new customers, seeing old customers. Obviously going, sometimes it was, as simple as dropping off coffee and donuts or pizza to some of the guys at a job site, making sure they were happy, dealing with issues if I had any, putting out fires, meetings throughout the day, things like that. Now we're stuck in a cubicle, or not a cubicle, but we're at home, and I'm trying to expedite all the work. We've halted all interior work, so we don't have workers in people's homes. And that was actually a little bit of a, excuse my language, a shit show, because I was in the middle of 2 jobs. One of them in particular, when the stuff started to hit the fan, we had just finished demoing, and I had a sense something was coming. And the homeowner's like, no, it's okay. Go ahead. And I'd spoken to them about it. And then, of course, right in the middle of them saying, all businesses are closing. We're in the middle of a job, and people are without a kitchen. So that was a bit of a nightmare trying to get that all done, making sure everybody was still good to install. And then, of course, I had some installers not wanting to work because they were afraid. Some were still okay to go. They were okay. So we put in strategies now. First of all, we pulled back on the interior renovations altogether, but we needed to finish what we were doing. So I actually put my guys in a hotel, so they weren't going anywhere. It was from the hotel to the job site and back to the hotel to finish that interior job, because the people that we were dealing with were not elderly, but older people, and the woman had dealt with cancer in the past, so she was highly at risk. So I thought it would be a good strategy for us to actually put the installers in a hotel, and give them individual rooms, and talk to them about sanitization, keeping themselves clean, keeping the job site clean, getting them from the hotel to the job site, making sure they got fed and had somewhere to stay until the job was complete, which we've done now.
So, I mean, that sounds like at this point, you've basically eroded your margins to almost nothing, but in really just doing what you can to see the job through and be a man of your word at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't completely erode the margins. It definitely took a toll on our profit, having to do that type of thing. But definitely, I think that it was more important for the health and safety of our customers and our staff to make sure we did that over a few dollars on one job, right? Because we sell hundreds of jobs a year, and I didn't want that to affect our reputation to any degree, or really the health and wellness of anybody. So we did that. So now what we're doing now, a day-to-day looks like is I'm actually taking customer calls over the phone, sending out. We have one salesperson out right now dealing with sales calls. They're not shaking hands with anybody. They're keeping 10 to 12 feet back from the people when they discuss the jobs, only exterior on the job sites, and any contracts that we do sign are done via email, and we don't exchange pens. We don't have anybody in anybody's homes. So we're doing what we can for the continuity of the business, but we are seeing a massive decline in people making decisions on doing work, for sure.
Okay, interesting. What is has the province issued any guidance for proper physical distancing on site, or is it just kind of guesswork, or you're just sort of running with the existing, with the existing social policy and applying that to a job site? Like, is it just kind of use your own guidance and you're forced to
Yeah,
adapt?
we haven't had a lot of transparency on because we're not a large scale, like I'm not a big large scale GC where I'm doing, hiring union guys and things like that. So there's no real transparency from the government on how to actually approach this. As a matter of fact, I actually had to go and do my own research to make sure we were still technically an essential business, which we are, to make sure that we could still install jobs ongoing and fulfill ongoing contracts. So basically what I've done is I've called guys that I know in the industry, asking what they're doing and what their standard of practice is going to be going on, is it's going to be going forward. And within the few guys that I've spoken to, what we're trying to do is make sure all the installers bring their own food to job sites, and go directly from the job site, go home. They're not leaving their houses for anything other than absolutely essential runs like groceries and pharmacies. So we're adhering to all those things. We're asking all our installers to make sure they're washing their hands at least once an hour on the job site, and making sure they clean up anything that can be wiped down or is being wiped down. So we're sending out products like bleach mixed with water, being able to spray everything down as long as it won't damage our products. For exterior stuff, obviously things like concrete and wood, there's not much you can do about it. We're asking guys to wear their gloves and just trying to follow social distancing and hygiene practices as best as possible throughout the process, and also not keeping more than one to three guys on a job site at a time. And we're asking them all to arrive on the job site in their own vehicles, so they're not sharing and carpooling vehicles,
Right.
And keeping distance from one another as best as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm. Has there been pushback from the labor side? Like, are there people, like, what's your read on it? Do people want to work? Do they want to be safe? Like, what is it? Are they dealing with it? Are they frustrated that now they have to take this?
I think it's half and half. I have some guys that don't want to work and that wanted to do a 2-week quarantine with I have different crews that specialize in different areas of expertise, whether it's roofing, aluminum work, flooring, this, that, and the other. And usually it's 2 to 3 guys per crew. And a couple of them wanted to basically wait 14 days, be at home with them and their families before they would actually go out together and work together again, and sort of implement that strategy where they've waited 2 weeks. Then they all can go to work together, know where they've been, and discuss where they've been and what they've been doing, so they can keep each other safe that way. So that's been so. And then the other 50% are still okay to work, and they're just again doing what they can to put in practice, like social distancing, not being next to each other on job sites, making sure they wash their hands, yada yada. You guys have heard this tune going on in the news 100 times. They're doing what they need to do to make sure they stay safe while getting the job done.
Okay. I know Trump just extended guidance on social distancing in the U.S. to the end of April. What happens now if you guys are going to probably exhaust your existing jobs and filling the supply chain in a poor economy with a bunch of barriers to entry in the sales process? Like, what's your read on what the next couple of months looks like for not just your business but every business?
Percentage wise, it would be really hard to give you like a percentage wise figure on like how much of a decline there is, but I could certainly tell you that we're probably in the past 2 weeks, comparing this year to last year, this year to the past 5 years, typically early April till July 1st is like, it gets crazy in terms of sales, where we're ready where we're bringing in anywhere between 8 and 10 orders a week as a company. Right now, we're doing between 1 and 2 orders a week, and it's typically with people that are retired who are not being affected directly by their income because they don't need their jobs any longer. They've all been retired, so they're more comfortable in spending money because it's not that much different for them as long as they haven't lost too much money in the stock markets or however they deal with their money. So I could say we're probably down sales-wise like 70%, something like that.
That's tough though, because the people who are not affected financially are the ones that are more affected biologically, right? So you kind of
yes,
the thin line you have to walk.
Yeah, 100%. But they are, like I said, we've made them feel very comfortable where everything is being done via telephone calls or emails. So we don't actually touch anything that they're touching. Like this, I said, we only have one salesperson out right now. because we've taken that down to just one sales guy, and he's staying within 10 to 15 feet and just speaking loudly across so they can sort of discuss what's going on the job site. Otherwise, if the customer is feeling very uncomfortable for that, what the customer will do is take photos of the job site, or we'll go to the job site and call them, so they're communicating via phone and a window, from the house window to the salesperson who's on the actual job site, having a look at the job, measuring it up. So it's kind of a strange new norm that we have, but it is becoming the norm right now. And we've seen that a lot of people are actually adhering to the social distancing from our experience so far and where we've been working, which is really nice. So hopefully it'll work out quite well. But yes, it is tough right now, really tough.
What advice can you offer to individuals and businesses right now on how to deal with this? I know you and I were both probably a little bit more prepared than most. I mean, due to whatever it would be, paranoia, anything else.
I think we did a podcast about this about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and everyone's like, "Oh, you guys are crazy. You don't know what you're talking about."
I know,
right?
Yeah, it is pretty funny to look back on that episode from a couple of months ago and realize.
And hold up, what was I saying about the real estate market staying strong?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's see what happens.
We'll see. That remains to be seen still, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I still maintain that you're going to see the froth get kind of shaved off the top, and then
right.
So I think that the built-in growth is going to fail to be realized. I don't think we're actually going to see a drop, but there will be a drop for whoever bought on that spec. They're going to lose that spec. And so a lot of these condos, or not just condos, I say condos because that's the most people are most familiar with that as a pre-construction product, but a lot of these pre-construction products that people are buying at 20 or 30% inflated values based on what the fair market value of a comparable unit would be. I think that stuff will get pulled right out. And then there's some other toxic assets, ghost hotels are toast, and you're seeing them right now. And that's going to pull, I think that's a meaningful enough supply shock that it should pull values down a little bit. And then we'll see what happens when employment and the erasing of wealth via the stock market, when that weeds its way into the market, what how that manifests, nobody knows, right? I mean, the market's been on a freaking bull run for 6 days.
So let me ask you something now. The question is as you know, we own a number of residential rental properties.
Yeah.
And of course, the concern for us is, are tenants going to continue to pay rent during this process?
Yeah.
Now, I'm relatively small scale, and I manage all those properties. So I'm personally in contact with all of them. It just so happens that all of our renters happen to not be affected. Their jobs happen not to be affected by this. So we've been lucky in that sense. Again, I'm pretty small scale. If you're doing any type of large scale where you're doing 60 doors plus, or you have any units that are 60 doors plus, or you have multiple units that are, north of 60 to 100 doors, I'm curious to know how that type of investor is going to take a hit when people cannot pay their rent. If they're, if they are renting, D and C level living, or even A, people, A level living, and people are losing their jobs.
I think a lot of the A stuff is going to get hit harder because, I mean, with the so-called slumlords, their tenants already have their EI checks, right?
Right.
So that's number one. But number two would be that you're fiscally responsible. You're not scale doesn't really matter so much. A lot of these REITs and larger institutional landlords, they have shareholders to appease, and they have to play by the rules and not defy financial logic, right? And if you when you get a chance to speak with your brother about this, I imagine companies like that, they're operating with emergency funds, just like individuals should, right? It's if a black swan like this does cruise into the market, what can we do about it? Because the government's already put up helicopter money to pay for the rent of people who are marginalized by this issue. It's going to take a while for that to be capitalized in the market properly.
Right.
You can pay I just because I know you, I'm guessing, and I think I'm definitely right, but that you can pay the rent, or you can pay the mortgage of your investment properties for a month if a tenant can't pay. And a lot of these companies are in the same position. It's the guys who are over levered, don't have cash, don't have.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm just getting.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of a technical issue there. I apologize.
No
Sorry, I missed what you said there that last one.
No, I mean, it's really just that you're fiscally responsible enough to be able to pay to service the property, at least for a couple of months until.
Oh, 100%. There's no question about that.
That's
now you mentioned my brother would know. He's actually in the commercial space. He's an accountant for a firm called Europro, I believe is the name. And he's one of the managing accountants there, and they deal strictly in commercial.
Right. But
so
this is going to get smoked too, right? Like a lot of these residents.
No, that they're going to get crazy smoked because a lot of them are shut down.
But like these guys, they're going to have cash on hand. Like, they're not just living paycheck to paycheck, and that's where, it's the landlords who haven't been fiscally responsible that are going to be the ones that get burned. And to be honest with you, they should. Like, I think that if you are operating on the assumption that a levered investment has no risk associated with it, then that was a foolish decision. And
absolutely.
So I think that's gonna burn a lot of people. Like, everybody was told that real estate was a sure thing, and people were told that, you can't get hurt. I mean, you can, and their exposure is going to be worse than anything. Like, the stuff isn't recession proof. Maybe if you're a slumlord, you're recession proof because your tenants are already on welfare. But beyond that, I mean, now that 3 million people are going on welfare in our country, not welfare but EI, it's gonna, things are gonna change, and a lot of people are about to realize the risk of holding a levered asset.
100%. So the other question also comes down to, with a lot of that, when you're talking about EI and, is the government doing what it should be doing, and are they acting responsibly in terms of, I guess that's a whole nother topic to get into, but keeping people at home. And
it's also like we had to act so fast that you can't really know. Like, it's almost bad to look in the rearview mirror. Hindsight's always going to be 20/20, right? Like,
of course,
we can't really go back and judge it retroactively. I think that we're all just trying our best to get by, and I would include the government in that. I am a little bit.
Yes and no. Okay, so a little bit more background on me for you guys that don't know. I actually have a degree in disaster and emergency management. So I actually studied this stuff in university. We did something called high hazard risk analysis, and we dealt with dealing with things like pandemics, hurricanes, tsunamis, ice storms, any type of man-made or natural disaster, or even war. We dealt with dealing with that, and there was a lot of lessons learned that we learned over the years. Things like, I actually think the governments are doing really, excuse my language, piss poor jobs of using lessons learned from past issues, because what happens is people have a very short disaster memory. They forget, we talk about, how well we were prepared after SARS, but yet we're seeing the whole world come to a freaking halt because we weren't actually prepared after SARS. Because what happened was they got prepared for the first 12 to 18 months after SARS, talking about SARS, and then everybody forgot about it. And then you had guys like Bill Gates talking 2 or 3 years ago about the next coronavirus, about the next flu epidemic, but no one's paying attention because no one wanted to spend money on something that hadn't happened yet. That's why, like, everybody hates buying insurance, because you have to spend money on something that may or may not happen.
Yeah.
Right? But, we talked about how it wasn't a matter of what, it was a matter of when. Mm-hmm. And, I kind of knew this was going to come. I didn't know it was going to come in 2020. I knew something was going to happen, and that would change our world, similar to the way the world was changed after post 9/11. And I think that there's going to be a big fallout out of this. And I'm curious to see who's going to be on top and who's going to get sucked and get, sort of killed financially on the back end when this is all done.
I think it's funny. Sorry, I got a call coming in here. I think it's funny when you evaluate, that we were talking about this 2 months ago. Was our government doing anything 2 months ago? I mean, maybe, and they just...
Maybe we didn't know about it. They haven't been so transparent, right?
I guess they were being careful not to fearmonger too, right? Like, they really didn't want panic.
Right. But the news did a good job of that, so...
Yeah, I know. Well, the media did a good job of a lot of things, like, pitting landlord and tenant against one another. Now they're dividing the laborers and the office and field workers of large-scale construction sites. I mean, the whole thing's just becoming a mess, and it's just exacerbating that polarity that we're already feeling in society. But
I really hope people today, as a big thing in general, are starting to be more discerning when it comes to evaluating the type of media that they consume. And even if they are consuming things like mainstream media sources that are in the business of making money and having, like, they make money from news, from viewership, right? And it's in their best interest for things to be going wrong all the time in the world, because that's the best thing that sells. So I think people need to be a little bit more careful about how they consume their media, and if they are consuming that media, how they actually interpret it.
Yeah,
I think that's a big option. Anyway, so I think we're a little bit off topic here. Yeah. So going forward,
anything you want to say before you sign off? Just advice or guidance for people and how to do this, especially from a economically for contractors, for homeowners that are looking to get work done.
For contractors, it's very tough right now. I think it's hour by hour. I think hour by hour, day by day. It's an unprecedented situation, right? There's no precedent set, so we don't know what to do. So I actually have a conference call with my marketing guy today at 4:00. We're going to actually try and dive into a new marketing campaign, telling people how we're still here to serve them at a distance. And by the time this whole thing blows over, we're likely looking to July, August at best. People aren't going to start having work
right now.
Sorry,
the goal then filling the pipeline right now.
The goal is filling the pipeline. It's not just filling the pipeline for come August time when things start to normalize, but it's also filling the pipeline with people who are still want to get work done, because there's a lot of people sitting at home staring at their houses right now, saying to themselves, geez, I wish I can get this work done right now. I don't like the way this looks, and they're having lots of time to look. So maybe trying to capture that market.
In a perfect world, then, if somebody was able to get the work done from a logistical perspective, like safely,
yep.
Is it a good time to do that cost-wise? Like, are there people looking for work? Is there going to be cost savings, or?
I don't think there's going to be any cost savings, because, like I said, I'm down about 50% of my guys not wanting to work, and I can't argue with them about that if they're concerned about their safety. And there's guys that have told me that they didn't want to work, and then a week later they called me, told me that, they're going stir crazy at home. Is there work? So it's a combination. Safety is like the most important thing right now, and adhering to the social norms that we have going on right now, which is physical distancing, actually keeping people away from each other and keeping them safe. I think that's also that social distancing thing there needs to be common sense in it. We know that if two guys are at home for 2 weeks and not interacting with anybody else, and they're only, they're receiving groceries from delivery, wiping down all their groceries as they come in, going to and from work in their own vehicles, not coming within 5 to 10 feet of the other guys working on the job site, going back home, doing the same thing over and over again. I mean, realistically, we can't keep people safe during that process. Not interacting with the homeowners inside, our installers are outside. So I think there is a way to do it. I think we have to be careful, and I think we have to be very cautious. And I think everybody that I've been working with recently is using common sense. I know not everybody uses common sense. It's not all that common as they say, but they're using common sense, and they are social distancing. They are washing their hands properly. We're having materials, for example, instead of our guys picking up materials from Home Depot or from Lowe's or from any of our other stone suppliers or wood suppliers, we're having it delivered instead to job sites. I'm allowing it to sit on a job site for 3 days before our guys go in and start touching it. So there's a 72-hour period where all that materials had a chance to, they say that the virus doesn't last more than 72 hours on material according to the CDC. So we're allowing material to sit on a job site for 72 hours before the guys touch it. So things like that, just to keep people safe. And I want, and I'm trying to advocate that to our homeowners, that we're doing our absolute best to make sure that our installers are safe, our materials are safe, and they're safe.
Well, yeah, I mean, realistically, like it's not you who's assuming the risk here. Like if, let's say you're just brokering the supply chain here. So if you have labor who is willing to assume the risk and do and exercise best practices to protect the client, and the client's willing to do the same, and they want to get the work done, or they need to get the work done, I mean, people still need to work and people still need to get work done. Like,
right.
There's a lot of romanticism about how, the simplicity of shutting down an entire economy, but there's a lot of things that, we're not going to feel the impact of the hit to the supply chain until, this time next year. And that's painful for an economy.
Yeah. And the reality is people, at the end of the day, as much as the government wants to try and give out $900 every 2 weeks to some people, maybe that's not enough money for them. Maybe we don't want to sit around for the government money. Maybe we want to still go out and make a living, because we need to make more than that to survive. I've got 4 children, right? Unfortunately, $1,800 a month doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people that I eat what I kill, meaning I don't make money unless I sell contracts. So that's a tough pill to swallow for guys like me. Now, again, I'm in a situation where I have always prepped myself for emergency situations, just like you. And I'm used to going months without getting paid, because that's just the nature of our industry. But I think a lot of my installers, some of them can't go more than 3-4 weeks without getting paid, especially after a long winter of not working.
For sure.
Right. And that's a big thing. Yeah. So
anything you want to sign off? I got to run into a meeting.
Nothing I want to add to you. I'd love to. The only thing I'd like to do is have a chat with and we'll have to set up a time to do that. Have a chat with the old boy brother of mine and talk to him, see what he's doing in his industry and how they're being affected. Because I think that would be very interesting, because they're much larger scale than both of us.
Yeah, no, I'd love that. If you can set that up, let me know.
Yeah, and that would be a much more interesting conversation, I think, than you and I.
I don't know. I mean, I think that everybody, I found it really cool to learn about how, the nuances of how this is impacting every single market, right? Because
right.
The reality is we're all in this together, and we just don't really know how to, we can't be empathetic to other people if we don't know what's going on in their lives and how they're being affected.
Right.
And that's why I'm just trying to touch base with as many people that I know that are in the real estate space that, are being impacted, so that we, to try and broaden the information that we're all operating on, so we can see how to support one another and piece this supply chain back together in a safe and physically distant fashion. Right.
Right. Well, so here, you asked me if I wanted to put one last thing. I think people need to get creative. I think people really need to get creative to figure out how to make their businesses work while keeping people safe.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the big thing is overcoming that obstacle. And if we can do that, maybe we can keep some of the wheels of our economy turning, which will be good for everybody long term.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Thanks for your call. I appreciate. Go hit your call. Go hit your conference call. We'll talk to you later.
All right, buddy. Talk soon.
All right. Ciao. Bye.